Welcome back to Biblical Civics. This is Josiah Magnuson. We're now all the way on week number 5, and we're looking at the power of the family. The family is an engine for freedom, and it's an engine for the biblical civilization. And we look at what did God create the family to do? The family is not just some sort of arbitrary thing. It's not just this place that, secular culture talks about, which, well, I feel loved in the family. My family is wherever I feel loved, wherever I'm truly cared for. The family biblically is something very specific, and it's the marriage of a husband and a wife that can raise children. God created the family to raise a godly seed. And that's why we have the dominion mandate. The dominion mandate says, go and subdue the earth, take dominion of it, and be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And that's what God wants from our families. He wants us to fill the earth with a godly seed. Now, the devil hates that. The devil does not want the earth filled with a godly seed. And so he has tried from time immemorial to attack that. And that's why you find such an emphasis in the devil's attacks upon God's people. You see such an emphasis on sex. You see such a proliferation in our culture today of fornication of all kinds. Okay? We see the homosexuality, we see the transgender stuff, and then we see the fruit of that, which is abortion. We see that the perversion, and people don't want to take responsibility then for their actions. Instead of a godly seed, we are having no seed. And we're actually at a population crisis now, not just in America, but around the world, in Western countries mostly, where people are not having kids. And that is something that the devil, unfortunately, is very gleeful about. This is connected to the communist agenda, believe it or not. And we need to understand and be wise about what the devil is doing to attack our families. Because it's not just a sexual agenda, though we all know that it is. But there's something deeper going on here. If you go back to 1848 in the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx talks about his attack against capitalism, why he thinks capitalism needs to go down, and he lists one of the reasons, one of the main reasons, as why he's trying to do this is the abolition of the family. He sees the family unit as a means of oppression. And he actually talks about how he wants to create this socialized education system rather than parents being in charge of education. And so we find that actually the attack on the family is through replacing the parents with the state. Not just by trying to push sexual perversion, but also by putting new parents in charge, which is the government and the community, quote unquote, for the children. And what you end up with is, instead of a godly seed being raised up, those children that survive, that don't either get mutilated or killed by abortion, end up being allegiant to a new God, a new father, which is the government. And it's a communist agenda. And you find this historically over the last 100 years or so. You find that the centralized government systems, the communist structures, the fascist system, which is also a form of centralized control that has relied upon the deification of government power, those things have tried to replace the parents, the things that the parents would normally be doing, with providing food, with providing medicine, with providing education. And so it's very important that we break the union of family and state as best as we can and move back to families being families and doing their God-given duties. And so that is where we find that God has given to the parents, and especially specifically to the father, the role of raising children. And so that is where we find really a solution to this attack, is for fathers to stand up and defend their families and to again focus on raising that godly seed. And if we focus on the raising the godly seed, that results in arrows being projected out into the culture, and young adults who are articulate, who will take a stand for God and be courageous for God and do the right thing. Those young people then going out into society and sowing the seeds of righteousness, and then themselves having godly families, and it multiplies upon itself. And so you find that the society begins to then turn again towards righteousness. Now, what role does the government have to play in this? Because we don't want the government to replace the family, and we need, as families, to take a stand against this and reclaim that family authority structure, that family jurisdiction. What role does the government have to play? Is there anything the government should be doing to protect family values? Well, yes, there is, because the main thing that government is to do is to set a standard of what is real. So, for example, you don't want the government to recognize homosexual marriage. That's not real. There's no such thing as homosexual marriage. And for the government to say there is a lie. That's not something the government should do. The government should not lie to you. The government should say what is correct according to the law of God. It doesn't mean they go into the family and try to tell parents what to do, but they do in the laws. We in the laws, if we're in government, say, here's what reality is. No, we're not going to recognize a marriage that's fake. And so we can, in our laws, use biblical definitions, biblical approaches, and we can address things in a way that is right rather than wrong. We also are to, of course, defend children against abuse. Those are very clear things. We can coordinate as government. We can coordinate things like inheritances, and there's a lot of other aspects to that role. But what we, again, really need, this is not coming from the government per se. What we really need is the families to step up. And that becomes then, again, the engine for liberty in the civil realm. You start with the individual. The individual's in the driver's seat, but then the family is the power. It's the powerhouse. It's the way that you're moving forward to go down the road. And it's because you're creating new godly citizens who can take a stand for something, who know what's right, and are going to use their gifts and talents for the glory of God. So that's what we need to be pursuing. We need to be praying for that, and then we need to be committed to that in the days ahead. I think there'll be a lot of problems for the people who do, but we have to have courage, and we have to defend our families.